Well, welcome those of you starting to come on. We'll give a few more minutes for some more people to come on with us tonight. Welcome all of you. We'll get started here. If you're there, we'll encourage you to go out and invite some more of your friends to join us tonight for this study. Tonight we'll be studying. Just type it in here. John 9. We'll do about 1 through 12, looks like, here tonight. See me looking away. I'm looking at my other computer. Yeah, John 9, 1 through 12 tonight. And for those of you who like to have titles and topics, everything correct. Let's see here. I've been teaching lessons recently on faith, and tonight I want to continue in that direction. So again, welcome to all of you who are joining us. We encourage you to go out and invite some more of your friends to join us for our Bible studies. We'll give about another minute before we get going. See a number of familiar faces. Good to see you all. Well, by the way, also, if you have questions, feel free to leave your questions with us, and we'll try to answer those as well. All right. Good to see you, Janet. Okay, about another minute or so, and we'll get going with this study. So if you have your Bibles, you can go ahead and find John 9, 1 through 12. I'll be using the NIV version. NIV version tonight. Actually, I pull up NCV. Let me pull up the NIV version here. There we are. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the Nice Bible Study. I'm Dr. Anthony Revis. I'll be leading the study tonight. When we do these studies, we don't teach them from any particular denominational direction at all. We basically read through the Bible and make some comments and commentaries as we go. The commentaries, I'll be reading some of my own notes. I write most of my own commentaries, so you're free to repeat them as we go. Again, and also, we encourage you to invite other friends as we do this. So let's get going with tonight's lesson. Tonight we're going to take a look at John, the 9th chapter, verse 1 through 12. And to give this a title, we're going to call it Primed Faith. Primed, as in primed. That's right, you primed something. Now, for those of you who will be with us, if you follow Angie Jackson, she tends to connect the notes really, really, really well. She's one of my ministers. I often tell people that Jeremiah had Barack, but I have Angie Jackson. So you can follow along. So that's why you see a lot of comments from her. So we're going to talk about prime faith. And just to think about the concept of primed, it's a little bit like when you paint. When you paint, oftentimes the surface that you're painting needs priming before you could put on the paint. Okay. Now, it's not that you're particularly interested in the prime, but you want the result, you want the finished look from having primed before you paint. And that way the paint takes better to the surface, okay? And therefore you get a better look. Well, the same thing can happen in our faith walk, that occasionally our faith and our faith walk will need priming so that we can position ourselves to receive the blessing. And you're going to see an example tonight of where I get the concept of what I call prime faith from, okay? So let's start now. We're going to look at John. As we go through this, we'll make some comments. And before we leave, we'll come back and we'll summarize a lot of the things we talk about tonight. So we're talking about prime faith. Again, like priming a wall to paint. Occasionally, our faith needs a little bit of priming to put us in a position to receive the blessing. It's not that it's not our blessing. It's just sometimes we haven't been primed to receive it. Okay, and so you're going to see an example here tonight, and hopefully you'll get an idea of what we mean. If you prefer another title, you can, when you teach the lesson, you can change the title. But tonight we're going to call it Prime Faith, and it comes from John 9th chapter. And I'm going to start reading here. I'm going to read through verse 12, and I'm going to make some comments as we go. All right, Prime Faith, chapter 9 of John, NIV version. As he went along, and this is Jesus, as Jesus went along, he saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, first of all, you have to realize that oftentimes people have a concept that if they see something wrong with you, you must have done something wrong. You're broke, you must have did something wrong. Okay? You're sick, you must have done something wrong. If you didn't, your parents did, or somebody you know did. Okay? Sometimes life just has a way to come to see us all. Ecclesiastes talks about that. Okay? Occasionally, life just happens to everybody. So trying to make a big deal out of the fact that the pastor is sick today, well, if he's sick, I thought he knew about healing, he should have been well. Sometimes it just comes to see us all. And that just happens. And that's what's happening here. So they had a concept that someone must have done something wrong. Sometimes nobody did anything wrong. Just life came to see him. So here's a person with life just happened to come to see this particular man, and he was blind. Okay? That's where he is. That is his state. Your state may be a little different. Okay? But his state is that he's blind. So Jesus said, neither this man nor his parents sinned. Jesus said, but this happened so the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as this day, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Now, as we read this, it makes some people a bit nervous the way Jesus phrased it. And he said exactly what he meant and meant what he said. But Jesus is not saying here that this man was purposely cursed so that he could be made an example. He is saying what we told you, the Ecclesiastes said, and the Proverbs teach us that life came to see this man. And since life came to see this man, this is an opportunity for God to work in his life. Similar when life comes to see you or see your loved ones, this is often opportunities for your family or for you to see God work in your life. And that's why we talk about prime faith. You see, prime faith has a way of showing up when there's nothing really wrong, or no one did anything wrong. And because of that, people tend to be settled in their way and start to accept the way things are and accept that as the status quo. And occasionally, Jesus will show up in your life to shake it up a little bit, okay? To prime it, okay? And that's what he's going to do for this man. Because right now, everybody has accepted his state of being as the way it should be, the way it is, and that's the way it's always going to be. You might be like that right now, that there's some situation you're in and people expect that's just how it's going to be for you. Let me tell you something. Never settle for status quo when you can find Jesus. Don't settle for status quo when you can find Jesus. And that's where this blind man is. So it's an opportunity for God to work in his life. And this may be an opportunity for God to work in some of your lives who watching us tonight. Okay? So it doesn't mean anything happened, you did anything wrong, but you still need Jesus. All right? Now, after saying this, Jesus, spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. This is Jesus doing this. And what Jesus is now doing is priming the man's faith. Okay? You see, what prime faith does is it's designed to help you let go of your sensibility that might be standing in the way of your next faith event. So sometime when the Lord is moving, he will do things prior to giving you a miracle just to shake you out of your sensibility, because sometimes your own sensibility is what's standing in the way of your miracle. Now, I have to point out to you at this point that I only teach this from a Christian perspective. If you're not a Christian tonight and this is bothering you a little bit to hear about miracles, then this might not be the lesson you want to hear. But oftentimes we find ourselves where our own sensibility gets in the way of it. The Lord calls you to start a church, but it makes absolutely no sense at all to start the church with just you and your family. That's completely. So sometimes God has to throw you out the other church you're in. So now you don't have a choice except to do it. So sometimes he has to prime your faith. He has to do something, or something will happen in your life to shape you into your faith. So here this person, this blind person, he's not even asking for it. This is not what he was expecting. He wasn't coming for it. He was already settled in his way. And sometimes prime faith has to shake you out of your settled moment. And so now Jesus is shaking the man up by making mud and putting it on to help get the man ready to receive his blessing. That's what he's doing. He's absolutely doing it. But he's not doing it for his benefit. He's doing it to prime the faith of the other person. Now, why is he doing that? You see, when we find ourselves in lost situations or hopeless causes, sometimes we get comfortable and we're okay being there. Okay. And oftentimes we're not listening for our deliverance. We're not listening for our miracle. We're not listening for our turnaround because we're settled. So can you imagine what happened when this man, all of a sudden, Jesus put the spit on the ground and started putting it on and putting the salve, and it could have been a custom of the time to do that. But nevertheless, now he's got the man's attention. And now that he has his attention, he can deposit his miracle. You get it? All right. Now, all right. So what he's really doing is he is converting the atmosphere here from the impossible to the possible. Okay. So he's helping this blind man to get a sense that change can happen. But he's not only doing it for this blind man, he's actually doing it for the other people around him as well. Okay? Get it? And he's helping them he's also leaving them with a lesson that on occasion, you have to do something to position yourself so your faith can operate and you can get your deposit, your faith deposit. All right? All right? Now, so let's read on and we'll come back and talk about these in more detail. So he told him he put it on and told him to go wash in the pool at Siloam. It means sent pool. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. Now, the man started out blind. The man did what Jesus asked him to do, and he came back seeing. Now, who wants to argue with prime faith? He got the result. And that's what happens, okay? He primed it. He got the result. No one wants to argue now. You get it? And that's how it works. Okay? Never be afraid to do what it takes to see your miracle. No pun intended on the C. All right. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Is this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that it was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." Now look at this. Sometime when you get your miracle, people just won't believe it. They won't believe the change that occurred in you. Okay. Miracles have a way of doing that, don't they? Particularly when it changes the lives of people. But never underestimate the power of God to change a person's life. I don't care who they are, what their condition is. God can change their life. Listen, you may have some people in mind right now that in your own family, could be your children, that are doing some things, into some things that are causing them harm. You can invite a prime miracle, prime faith to their life. You may have some coworkers struggling. You've heard about it. Prime their faith. Perhaps tomorrow you want to leave a scripture on their desk. Perhaps you want to just leave a good poem on their desk. Perhaps you want to take them out to lunch and have a conversation with them. Prime their faith. Okay? That's how we prime faith. We prepare the person for the miracle that God will do in their lives. Okay? So instead of fussing and cussing, try priming the faith of someone. Help them to believe that a miracle can happen. This man has changed through the work of Jesus Christ. He is not the same person. But it's hard for people to accept that, isn't it? Okay? It's hard sometimes people to accept that people do change, and they can change, and they will change. And the power of God can do it. So here it is. He's changed. So they want to know, how then were your eyes open, they asked. Okay. He replied, the man called Jesus made mud and put on my eyes, and he told me to go wash in the pool. I went and I did it, and I could see. Jesus primed his faith to believe that it was possible. This man apparently had not even thought the idea that he could ever have his sight. We don't know. Perhaps he did. Okay. But Jesus primed his faith, and the man committed a primed faith act, and he received his miracle. And so they asked, where then is this man? They asked. He said, I don't know, he said. And here's what you need to know. Sometime you won't know all of how that miracle happened, but you'll know that it happened. And that's the most important thing to see in your life, is that your primed faith will bring about that miracle that you've been looking for, that change you've been looking for. And don't worry about where Jesus goes after that. Just know that he did visit you. All right. Now, let me make a few more points here about how primed faith works from my notes and from my commentary. Okay. Yeah. You see, oftentimes when there's primed faith, God will use what we call a point of contact. And that point of contact there is simply to prime you and prepare you and shift your thinking away from where it was into a mind that allows you to receive the miracle. You see, primed faith helps you to drop your intellectual exposition. You're going through all your intellect of it. You analyze it. The doctor said you're blind. The doctor said you have this sickness. The doctor said this will never happen. The doctor said your child will never recover from this disease or from that disease. Said you'll never recover from it. But primed faith will help you to drop your intellectual exposition. And it'll start to move you to faith-filled, looking for a deposit. So you'll move to a position where faith has you looking for God to do something. Okay. And so this man started to look for something to happen in his life because Jesus primed him to expect it. He was expecting a miracle. Okay. And when he expected it, he got it. And that's where you have to start to position yourself. And also, if you're in ministry, you want to start to position your people to expect miracles. Okay. Don't allow them to stand around and believe that the miracles can't happen to them. Okay. You see, what primed faith will do, and what this type of faith will do, is it will take advantage of a physical situation, okay, to bring about a spiritual outcome. It took complete advantage of this man being blind. He was physically blind. But because of the spirit that Jesus brought to the situation, and that's what Jesus does, Jesus always brings a favorable spirit to the situation. Okay? And because this man allowed Jesus to work the way Jesus worked, not the way he was expecting to happen, not the way someone else had told him it might happen, not according to the manual, okay? Not the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th step manual. Could have been 15 steps. I don't know. But he allowed Jesus to work the way Jesus worked. He received an outcome because of a spiritual move. Physical change and miracles in the earth happen because of a spiritual move of God that leaves a deposit in the earth. And that is always God's goal. Never lose sight of that in your life. Okay? So it's incumbent upon you, if you're in ministry particularly again, that you work with people and work with those in your ministry to develop a spiritual sense of their walk. And if they develop a spiritual sense of their walk, God will deposit the physical things that are needed. Okay? All right? You got that? Okay. So now again, they work through points of contact. What was the point of contact with Jesus? It was the mud. He put the mud on there and it helped the man to prime his faith. And that's how many of these prime faith events, and I just call them prime faith events, this is how many of these prime faith events work. They work by a point of contact. Okay? All right. For example, in Exodus 15, Israel needed some fresh water. Moses took a tree, tossed it in the salt water, and it became fresh water. He primed the faith, and the miracle happened. Elisha floated the axe by throwing a stick in the water. He primed it, and the floating axe handle floated. You can look these up in 2 Kings 6 chapter. There's a story of Naaman, who was a leper. Okay, Naaman was in 2 Kings 5th chapter, I believe it is. Yeah, 2 Kings 5th chapter is Naaman. He had leprosy, but when he dipped in the water 7 times, not 1, not 2, not 3, but according to the specifications, he came back whole. Elijah was fed by ravens at the brook in 1 Kings 17. So these are all examples of prime faith. The Lord, God let Elijah sit out and be fed by ravens to demonstrate that if Elijah had the faith in him, God would supply what he needed. That is what he did in this blind man. He helped the blind man to recognize that if you follow my prescription, I'm going to supply what you need. And God is still speaking that same thing to each and every one of us, that if we follow his way of priming, priming our faith, he will supply it. Okay. By the way, as I think about it, perhaps that's why in some of the old historical churches, some of the deacons used to always like to sing a song before they prayed. Perhaps they were priming the faith. All right. You get it? So occasionally our faith needs a bit of priming. All right. Let's see what other comments I want to make sure I make here tonight before we end. Okay. So now let me share with you then these 4 principles to hang on to when it comes to prime faith, because you might find yourself in a situation where the circumstances look like they're out of control. They are never out of control, and they're never too bad that Jesus can't handle them. So let me help you prepare yourself for prime faith, or for faith that needs a little bit of a kick to receive your miracle. Okay. All right. You ready? Here we go. Here's what prime faith looks like. Prime faith doesn't seek to identify blame. It doesn't seek to identify blame. So prime faith doesn't seek to identify blame. But, all right, what it does is set up heavenly intervention. Okay? So prime faith doesn't set up blame, doesn't look to identify blame or lay blame, but it sets up heavenly intervention. That's what happened for this blind man. Everybody else wanted to talk about blame, but Jesus wasn't interested in blame. He said, it's time for a heavenly intervention. The next time you see someone in need, instead of sitting there and keep asking them over and over how they got there, ask them, do they want to get out of there? That's what's most important. Okay? Don't seek to blame. Find a way for heaven to intervene. That's the first principle. So don't seek to identify blame, but set up a heavenly intervention. The second thing that prime faith doesn't do is prime faith doesn't see tragic situations, but it looks for spiritual opportunities. It doesn't see tragic situations. It looks for spiritual opportunities. The fact that there was going to be a drought in the land when God sent Elijah down to the brook was no problem. Okay? Because there was a spiritual opportunity for Elijah to depend on God. The fact that this man had been blind since birth wasn't a problem for Jesus. It was a spiritual opportunity. So when you find things out of control, look for the spiritual opportunity instead of staring so hard at the tragic situation. I've often said to people that if I'm ever in the hospital, there's some people I don't want to visit me because they'll be looking to measure me up for the undertaker. Get it? I want somebody to look for a spiritual opportunity, and you should likewise. Number 3, prime faith doesn't waste time with hypotheticals. Prime faith doesn't waste time with hypotheticals. And that's what they were doing. Well, it was the mama. No, this happened. Well, this is really what happened. All these are hypotheticals. Okay. But what it does is create miraculous deposits. It doesn't waste time in hypotheticals. Okay. But what it does is create miraculous deposits. That's what it'll do for you. Again, in 2 Kings 5, Naaman received a miraculous deposit. He was cleansed. Okay. The children of Israel received fresh water, miraculous deposit, when their faith was primed. So it doesn't waste time with hypotheticals, but it does create miraculous deposits. And the 4th one, prime faith doesn't expect complete understanding. It doesn't expect it, it doesn't demand it, and it doesn't ask for it. So it doesn't expect complete understanding, but it demands finished results. It doesn't expect you to completely understand how God works. But when you prime your faith, you could demand finished results. This man could see. And not only could he see, he now had confidence that he could see. And he also had confidence in how it happened. When prime faith delivers a result, the people who receive it have no problems giving God the glory. So prime faith is that event in the life of someone in need that helps to position their spirit to believe that the impossible is possible. Prime faith is that event in the life of someone in need that helps them to believe that the impossible is possible. We don't always know what the event will be. And we don't always know what event is necessary. But if you find someone a little weak in faith, find a way to help them prime their faith so that their spirit can shift in the direction of their miraculous recovery by the hand of Jesus Christ. Thank you for joining me tonight for this Bible study from John, the 9th chapter on prime faith. Dr. Anthony Revis, Faith Ministers Church, Midland, Michigan, USA. Good night.